Welcome to Season 2 of the SOAR podcast, the place for creative entrepreneurs who want to build healthier, happier, more profitable self-employed businesses. I'm your host, Ray Hyde Cornell, business mentor at Chiron Consulting and CEO and senior copywriter at Cornell Content Marketing. Get ready to soar. All right, welcome to today's episode. We have Kahn, which I'm so excited about because she is an expert in sales. So Merritt, tell our listeners about what you do and the business that you run.
Thanks for having me, Ray. I am the CEO of SELLect Sales Development. We spell it SELLect, but we actually want you to stop selling and start getting selected. So that's what we're all about, not teaching people how to be salesy or manipulative or being tricky or using any kind of Kahn techniques, but really having authentic business conversations so that their most ideal prospects and clients can select to do business with them.
I love that. That is such a fresh take on sales. I love that you're transforming sales into selection, and because nobody likes to be sold to. I mean, we all, especially since the invention of social media, thank you, Facebook and Twitter, we just are all always on the defensive about, oh, what do they want? They're asking me to opt into SMS. They're asking for my email account. They're asking for my phone number. Oh no, that's way too close. What are they trying to sell me? I mean, tell me more about this philosophy of being selected as opposed to selling it. It feels like almost a reversal of the energetic direction of the engagement. You're having people come to you as opposed to you sending all of these fingers out to try and get people in.
Yeah, well, I mean, I still want people to do some outreach, right? I still want you to do activities. So it's not like The Secret where we're just going to put out good energy and it'll just all come back to us. I do believe that there's something to that philosophy of putting good action and behavior out into the world, to put some effort into the things that you want to have a return on your investment of time, energy, and effort. But I also think that, we can't be pushy about it. So our messaging has to really set the tone. So it's the word choice. It's the way that we interact with people. We don't want to ask them for something first. We want to give first, right? So it's how you set up your marketing campaigns, and all of that really plays into the fundamental belief that you do want to be selected by your best fit prospects and clients to do the work you are best suited to do. And if you hold that intention and that is deliberate in all of your sales outreach, from your messaging to your marketing campaigns and everything, then, the right things are going to come back to you. But it really is about being selected. Well, in order to be selected, you do have to be visible in the marketplace that you want to be selected in.
And I feel like this is such a smart evolution of doing business, because if we think about, not to get too historical, but if we think about the timeline of marketing and advertising, when ads first started coming out, people just trusted them implicitly. They're like, oh, I'm so glad to have found this new brand of cigarettes or this new, canned ham or whatever it might be. And then we got into an era of really tugging on people's emotions and trying to make that almost guilt, or you need to do this in order to be a good wife, a good mother, a good provider, whatever it might be. And then we got into the 80s with this like really high pressure, I'm thinking of like timeshares, really high pressure, almost bullying sales tactics. And as things have evolved over time, now we're at this point where people know all the tricks. They are on alert. And it's almost like the more pushy you are, the more salesy you are, the farther it drives people away. And so you're really flipping that on its head, and you've created a way for people to come to you. And it's all about honesty, authenticity, all those things that really should have been there all along, because what you're doing is providing a product or a service that is meant to help people. It's not just all about making money anymore, right? So how does that, like, where would you start if someone came to you and they said something along the lines of, you know, I know nothing about sales. I just don't like to be sold to. I don't like to sell. It feels sleazy. What would you say to them?
I think, first of all, I love the historical look at how sales has evolved. You really summarize that very well. And unfortunately, I will have to admit to being one of those people who taught people how to do some of those techniquey
Yeah.
kind of tactical things back in the day. And, there was a time when I would literally teach somebody to not, I'm so embarrassed. I can't believe I'm going to reveal this on your podcast, right? But I remember being in the front of a room teaching a class, like, don't go in with a pen, because the first time they give you a pen, well, now they've given you something. Oh my God. I want to go back in time,
Mm.
like take everyone aside and say, oh my, I'm so sorry I ever taught you that. Like, that was
Yeah.
completely wrong, so misleading. And you're right. Like, people just know those tactics now, and it feels slimy. So I think to get to your current question, what would I say to somebody now? I think the first thing we want to do is really consider, the question I would ask is, have you already decided things can't get any better? Or
Mm.
are you open to a new possibility? And I feel like when I start with that question, whether that is in a one-on-one conversation with a prospect, maybe somebody who's heard me on a podcast or somebody who's read my book or been in one of my training sessions, but I also use that question when I'm addressing a large audience at a keynote, when I'm keynoting a conference or something like that. And when you ask people that question, there isn't a yes or no. So I'm not asking them, are you interested in a better future? Are you interested in making more money? Like, of course, like, duh.
Yeah.
But I'm asking, have you already decided it can't get any better? Or are you open to a new possibility? And nobody wants to admit that they're not open. And so when we can use that to our advantage, not in a manipulative way, but in a way to set the tone, to create an environment where somebody gets to acknowledge that they are open-minded, then you allow them to really hear the solutions that you have, the ideas that you have, the offers that you have. And when they can really be open to hearing that, you have a real shot at helping them solve a problem that really could be a big challenge for them.
Yeah.
But until you open their mind, you won't close a deal.
That's what a perfect phrase. Until you open their mind, you won't close a deal. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
thank you.
And I'm thinking back to all these situations that I've been in where people have tried to sell me things. And if they had started it with, it's like the guy who comes to my front door and who tries to sell me on solar for my house while I'm
Right.
trying to hold my barking dog back. And I'm just like, no, get off my property. Like, I'm not interested. But if they start with, are you open to considering solar for your house? I would be like, well, he's giving me an option of whether or not to listen to his spiel. He's not just trying to hammer me over the head with, oh, you could make your money back and all these tax credits and da 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 da. It's just such a more, I don't want to say sensitive way. That's not the right word. It's a much more humane way. It's a much more conversational and honest way, as opposed to trying to trick someone into a
Yeah.
conversation by manipulating the language.
Well, what you're picking up on is by starting any question with, are you open to, it appeals to our identity. It appeals to who we like to see ourselves, how we like to see ourselves operating in the world. And it's very hard to not be open to something.
Yeah.
But when someone comes to your door and they're like, I've got this great solar or whatever, it's pushy and aggressive, and we're hardwired. We've been programmed over all those years of people sitting in classes, unfortunately, like mine back in the day, where we taught those
Yeah.
pushy, aggressive sales tactics. And so over time, we've learned how to brace ourselves to defend ourselves from having those tactical things work on us.
Yeah.
But sales techniques haven't really kept pace with the savvy of the consumer. And I think that was one of the things that frustrated me as a trainer and coach and consultant for so many years. I've been doing this. I started my business in 1998. So I've been teaching entrepreneurs and sales professionals and sales teams for a very long time. And I've had to really pay attention to how the marketplace is changing and how sophisticated people are becoming and the changes that we've had. You can do a lot of research with a few clicks of the button. And now it's really a question of, well, I'm going to buy this thing. Why should I buy from you? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I've already done my homework. I already know what you've got. Right. And so it's a different conversation, and we need to kind of get away from that. Like, I appreciate that you've done your homework. I love that you've done your homework, but I'm really interested in, I don't know yet if my solutions are a good match for you. Can you share with me a little bit about the real challenges that you're dealing with and why you want this solution right now? And are you, how good can it get for you, right? Like, are you open to really doing things different, and why?
Let's talk about, I'm trying to take a note while I talk at the same time and it doesn't work. And I lost it. That's okay. It'll come back to me. So I wanted to talk about social media of all things. When Facebook and then especially Instagram and YouTube first came out, they weren't selling platforms, but then some people figured out, oh, we can get our products in front of more people and do all these things like influencer marketing and social selling and getting into people's DMs and having those like high pressure one-on-one conversations right there. And what's your take on how social media has impacted people's ability to sell, especially services?
That's a great question. I think, we're so inundated with messages and companies and causes and everything that's trying to, grab our attention. And so it's becoming a question of how do you cut through the noise? It used to be just the noise was radio, TV, billboards, direct mail, not that noisy when we really think about it. But now we have in our back pocket or on our desk shouting at us all day long, notifications and things that want to get our eyeballs. So I think, first of all, we have to be very selective with what we allow in. So I feel like, I've done a lot of work for myself personally to shut out all of the noise that really doesn't contribute to the identity I want to have in the marketplace, the value I provide to the marketplace. And I'm very aware. One of the first things I tell anybody when they're looking for a job or they're looking to hire people inside their own company, you really want to carefully cultivate your identity in the marketplace. And I think this has always been true, but because it's so easy to just snap a picture of us, at an event, having a good time or complaining about something, that does not contribute to who you are in the world. And so one of the things I tell freelancers, especially and entrepreneurs, is be very aware of the things that could give anybody in the marketplace pause about working with you. Your opinions, your strong opinions may be very valiant, right? They're great. We all have strong opinions, but that opinion, if not shared by someone that could be a potential business opportunity for you, may give them just enough pause for them to say, no, not going to give her my dollar. And that's the last thing you want. So I I have strong opinions of my own. I know half the world doesn't share them. And that's not who I want to be presented as in my
Yeah.
social media. I'm not just saying, I'm not saying like, don't be yourself. I'm just saying, be very aware if you have a business to run, who
Mhm.
you are out there on social media, because you just don't want to put any obstacles in anyone's way for wanting to do business with you. And just, yeah, that's
Well,
simple.
and let's talk about that a little bit more because first of all, I agree with you. I'm very much smack dab in the middle of a lot of debates that are going on. And so
Yeah.
I just don't even like to take sides. And so I just don't even engage. I don't even enter into those conversations because I can see things on both sides. I can see points that are right and wrong on both sides. And so I just don't even like to get into the tangle of it all. And so I agree with you in that sense of just it doesn't even matter. It's not even relevant to how you can help someone with your product or service. On the other hand, I come from a marketing background. And in the marketing world, they say be polarizing. You don't want to speak to everybody. You don't want to be a people pleaser because you want the people who share your same opinions and values to flock to you and feel like they share an identity with you. And it's kind of that marketing stance. Where do you see that kind of either conflict or jive with what you're saying about, don't close yourself off to opportunities by sharing, very strong opinions that may not even impact or have a
Yeah.
place in your relationship with your client or customer?
I would just caution people, myself included, to be polarizing in your area of expertise,
Mm,
not on things that have nothing to do with your offers.
yeah.
My taking a strong stance on anything political in this climate does me no good when it comes to supporting entrepreneurs and sales teams with how to grow their business. It doesn't come into play how I interact with my clients. We can all believe different things. I can still help you grow your business. It means nothing. But my taking a stand on, I'm trying to think of what would be like a good example. I'm working on a project right now for a company that is hiring a lot of salespeople, and have hired me to help them design from scratch an onboarding process to get their salespeople up to speed very quickly.
Mm,
So one of the things that I shared with them was, it's important to build your onboarding program first and then figure out what your hiring process is. And that was very counter to everything that they had thought. They thought, well, let's figure out how we're going to find people and what we're looking for and all of that first, and then we'll build onboarding, because that's the sequence, right? That's how
right.
it would work. And so it was a polarizing idea in a sense.
Mhm.
And I could have potentially lost the deal, I suppose, because I was very firm in, if we need to build the onboarding process first, that helps us inform the type of person who's going to be successful going through your process, right?
Yeah.
And so, there's a method to my madness. But so I would say be polarizing, be controversial even within your area of expertise. Allow those other people to contribute and have another opinion so that you can have a good debate. But that debate would highlight you as an expert in your area. It has nothing to do with, the vaccines and politics and all the other things that divide us unnecessarily.
Right. Absolutely. So I think that's really the distinction. And you said it perfectly. Be polarizing within your area of expertise as it relates to your business, not just, you know, for the hell of
Right.
it on any given topic. And so I love that you said cultivating identity. That's a really big piece of it. And before you can ever get to the sales part of it, you have to get leads. So, how does this idea of selection as opposed to sales relate to lead generation?
Okay. Well, I'm going to peel back the curtain for you, Ray.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you exactly how I do this in my own business. Okay. So we have created what we call a sales SWOT. which you may be very familiar with. Many of your
Strengths,
audience will be familiar.
weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Yep.
Exactly. Been around for a long time. And it's a great tool to really assess for your own business, where are the places where we shine and what are the threats in terms of the outside marketplace or competitors or whatever. And so you do this SWOT analysis. So we've designed a SWOT analysis that is very specific for business development. It's a direct hit for entrepreneurs. We developed it with entrepreneurs in mind, and it allows us to ask some questions. It does two things. So it really helps an entrepreneur if they never did any work with us. It's a blueprint for them to really consider some of the things that may be blind spots for them that they, once they have an awareness of, now they can go and do something about it. Whether or not they choose SELLect to work with us or not is besides the point. But for us, it is a great selection tool because I can look at the way that somebody's answered a question and say, oh, okay, based on how they've answered these questions, I know our material is really going to be helpful for them. Or based on how they've answered these questions, they may be a little bit beyond what we, where we typically play, or maybe they're not ready for us, our level of support and nurturing and, and hand holding through the business development process. So it's a great tool. It serves as a lead magnet for us, but it gives us some insight that's valuable here's the difference, right? If it's just self-serving for us, then it's a tactic.
Right.
If it serves our mission in making sure that we are mutually selecting each other, then it has to be valuable for the prospect, even as an exercise if they did nothing else. And so deliberately designing something that you can share with your market, with your target market, that helps them, that provides value, that also could be a tool to help you just determine whether you'd be good to do business together. That's how you get selected.
And I'm starting to notice this running theme through everything that you're sharing, which is everything is very mutually beneficial. Even your lead magnet, it's beneficial to you because you get the lead. It's beneficial to the lead because they get this insight into themselves and their business. And even what you were talking about before, with regard to starting these conversations with, are you open to, you're really setting yourself up to ask the question, are we a good fit? Are we a good fit to work together? And one of the things that I have so appreciated when I have been sold to is when someone says, you know what, I actually don't think that we're right to work together. I don't think you're ready for this program, or I don't feel like my expertise is what you need right now. And I have some recommendations for you to go get that help elsewhere, because that tells me, wow, they don't just want my money. They want to actually have a successful engagement with their clients. And that instills, even if I don't work with them, I will recommend them all day long because suddenly I trust them. And I know they have that genuine care about what they're doing to where they want to have an impact. They don't want to just take your dollars and leave you disappointed, high and dry. So am I right in seeing that parallel throughout everything that you're talking about?
I love that you pointed that out. I think that's an absolute parallel, and I've worked really hard to get to that point, right? I mean, I'm sure that there's a listener right now thinking, well, that sounds great. I'd love to be selective, but I need the money.
Right.
I need this project. I need this work right now. And to them, I say, okay, take a deep breath. Sometimes we really find out what we're made of when we know we're not a good fit for somebody, but we need the work, but to turn it down anyway, that takes a special level of commitment. Yeah. So my first thing would be to say, is there something you can offer that would be valuable? And maybe it's not the original thing, right? Like, is there something? And that starts the relationship, and maybe they grow into being able to buy your full package or something like that. But
Yeah.
I do think it is, we need to balance, ideally we'd love to be mutually selected for our ideal projects and the most profitable work that we do.
Yeah.
And we only work with those type of people. And then sometimes there are those real world moments where, we need to do something. And so I just wanted to note that,
Yeah.
because not that you're going to do something that's out of integrity, or, it's really like, you wouldn't hire me to build a marketing campaign for you. That would be a really bad idea. I'm great with infusing sales language into marketing campaigns,
Yeah.
but if you had me build your funnel, you will get no leads.
Yeah.
Like, that is not going to work.
Yeah.
So if somebody's saying, well, I want to grow my business and I want to do marketing, I would say, great, I appreciate that. Let's talk about, what happens when your marketing starts to work.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself in a sales conversation. You're feeling 100% confident that you're going to convert those leads into closed business. And then if they get a little shaky, I'd be like, well, would you be open to having a conversation about the idea of starting with becoming a sales expert, and then how you can use those teachings to make better marketing messages. And now you're prepared, because let's pretend your marketing works. We want to be able, it's all about conversion. And unless you're converting everything through automations and digital, if you have a conversation or consultation in any step of that process, then you have to know how to have that conversation. And that's a sales issue. So I can usually, sometimes people bring you one problem and the problem they bring you isn't the real problem.
Yeah.
So if you ask some good questions, which again is a sales strategy, then you can ask them the right questions so that they discover for themselves that the problem really is in an area where you are able to provide expertise.
Yeah. Oh, this is so fascinating. And I love that you demoed that conversation, that back and forth with a lead, because I think this idea, it works so well and it seems so natural for consultants. And I'm wondering, how can we, and maybe you've already done this, how do you adapt your perspective on this "are you open to" kind of conversation to people who maybe maybe they're not a consultant, maybe they're not, they don't have some specific intellectual property, they don't have a model or a paradigm that they're teaching and walking all of their clients through. Maybe they are a blog writer, maybe they are a graphic designer who does logos or websites, maybe they're a VA or an online business manager, an OBM. How would you advise someone in that position who doesn't really have like a unique framework to sell, and to say, are you open to learning this new way of selling, this new way of business management, but instead they have a specific service that they want to offer? How does that work?
I think the best thing that you could do in that scenario is to think about what you want for your own business, what your business model is. So sometimes it's not about, are you open to working a different, or, are you open to, the service? It's about, so first of all, always be happy to solve the problem that they bring you, solve the first problem. So if they first want a logo and they want to work on an hourly basis, or, they want to buy your package for X number of versions of it, great, sell them that. Like, make it easy for yourself, get the client. Then you could use your "are you open to" strategy, which is, I don't know if this is something that you're in the market for, but if you're open to it, many of my clients who started with this initial, logo package have gone on to do a different package with me that allows them to, create different blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know what what the offer is, but it's thinking about it in terms of, how can I apply this "are you open to" methodology to expand business opportunities, so that I'm really cultivating customers from that initial project to what is really more of an ideal type of relationship.
That is brilliant, because especially for service-based business owners and creatives, it's all about that repeat business. When you get
Yeah.
repeat business from clients who you already know, they already trust you, you've already had the discovery call, it cuts back on how much work that you need to do. And it gives you this steady stream of, I'll use myself as an example right now. Right now, we're going through some big pivots within Cornell, and I'm actually not seeking out new business. And yet we're starting 4 new projects next week because clients are coming to us. And that's, of course, I've been doing this for 15 years. So you build up to that. But that's such a crux of a healthy business, is that repeat clientele. And so this is all under the, I don't want to say assumption, but in the context of having conversations with people. What about for the people who their business is not necessarily designed for them to have one-on-one conversations, like those who are selling digital products or even physical products? Maybe they have an Etsy store. Maybe they're doing something like, I'm thinking of my husband who's, into carpentry and making cabinets, and it's very, product based and people can buy things online. How do you apply this conversational, authentic sales and selection perspective when all of the transactions are really happening without you ever having a conversation?
Great question. I think there's a couple of different ideas for that. So one, I'm a huge fan of video emails, like a little, or like LinkedIn email messages. So first I would say, that are you open to is a great lead in for, are you open to sharing with me, or having a discussion with me about who else you might know that could use my services, right? So a little bit of a twist on asking for referrals or introductions. Are you open to sharing with me your LinkedIn URL so that we can connect that way? And then you can send them a little message, a video or an audio message through LinkedIn that still kind of stands out from the typical ways that we communicate. But that's a way to make it more conversational. So anybody that's doing a purely virtual transaction, if you're communicating with somebody with an email, to fulfill on the transaction piece, then they've given you access. So you could use it. You could do that in an email and just say, are you open to, receiving a quarterly offer that's only reserved for current clients? Right? You could think about it like, people who bought this also bought these things, right? How many sales have you personally made, or how many purchases have you personally made from Amazon or whatever, or other, websites that have used that strategy in a good way? And this is the same kind of thing. So I would ask customers or anybody at their email, are you open to, receiving some more, some good tips and information in my area of expertise? Are you open to, taking advantage of a quarterly offer I only reserve for current clients, things like that. But I love that personal touch. I love the, hey, I was just interviewed on a podcast. Are you open to, checking it out, right? And share it. That's good information for people to learn. But I think you can do a lot. Like, in fact, I bought some t-shirts. I wish I could remember the name of this guy's store, because I would really love to plug him. It was such a great sales process. But I went online. I must have said the word t-shirt out loud in front of my phone one day. And there, it was like, I wanted a flag t-shirt, right? It was like 4th of July or whatever it was. And I was like, I need a flag t-shirt. And so then, of course, up pops in my Facebook feed this like flag t-shirt company. And so I bought a t-shirt, and probably within 10 minutes, I literally got a phone call from the owner of the company.
What?
And I was like,
how is that possible?
Yeah, it was crazy. Because, I put all my order information in there. First I got an email. So he did email first. Then I got a phone call. Like, I just wanted to thank you for purchasing and you're going to get in da, da, da. Like, how did you find us? I'm like, I don't know. I said the word t-shirt out loud. um, like something's working. And I guess my point is we have a way to do transactional business in a relational way.
Yeah.
And when you think about how, I mean, literally I bought one t-shirt from that guy, but that was more than a year ago.
Yeah.
And I'm still talking about it and it still resonated with me. And the next time I have to buy a flag t-shirt, I'm going to that guy.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, and I've told a bunch of people about him. So he got referral business for sure. I even posted in my Facebook, whenever it was a year or so ago, I posted a link to his stuff on my feed because I was so impressed by his process.
Yeah.
So I think we need to really be cognizant of, we're so transactional and everything is digital and virtual these days, but that doesn't mean we're not doing business with human beings. Human beings want to be related to, and the more we can bring relationship into our virtual transactions, the more successful we will be.
Yeah. And I think that's really the underlying takeaway here is always to focus on that relationship. And it's almost like that golden rule that, we hear as kids: treat people how you want to be treated. And, I'm a copywriter by trade. And so as you're talking about this and describing this process of video and then the phone call, I'm thinking of, oh yeah, you could infuse your website copy with that. You could have these conversations with people, anticipate their objections, anticipate, what their concerns and their worries are, and make them feel heard and seen. And at the same time, with regard to finding this mutually beneficial fit, I can think of a dozen websites off the top of my head that I've written for people where we have towards the bottom, this is for you if, this is not for you if, and really making it clear, this is not for everybody. I am not trying to sell we're going to cure the world. Everybody can benefit from this. Everybody's going to make millions and millions of dollars. Everyone's going to be healthy and happy and live forever. No. If you have these specific needs, if you're this specific type of person, then this is likely going to be a great fit for you. Let's talk more. Are you open to that conversation?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're thinking in terms of like a written version of this?
Yes, absolutely. I love that you're putting it into written form. That's exactly the right application, and appeal to the identity that we all want to share, which is, this is also not for you if you're not open to possibilities. And people are going to look at that and go, well, I'm of course open to new possibilities. Yeah. And so then they get to feel good. It's like we're tapping into that part of all of us that wants to feel good about being open-minded. And that's, again, what allows us to hear the opportunity in an offer for ourselves. I know a lot of people are going to be listening to this just as an auditory podcast, but let me walk you through a little visual example that I give when I do a keynote on this topic. So if you imagine, and you can play along, but not if you're driving because you want both hands on the wheel. But if you're doing your makeup, like put the mascara down and play along for a moment. But if you make a fist with your left hand, and if you think about it, this is your prospect's mind, right? It's closed. Nothing's getting in. And then if I had I'm going to wave a check, an old fashioned check. People sometimes still use these. But imagine this was a $20 bill or a $50 bill or a nice paper check. And all day long, we're trying to jam our value. If this represents our value,
trying to get in,
we're trying to jam our value into this closed fist. It doesn't work. You can't pick it up. It's like going into one of those money booths. But if they said, congratulations, you won 5 minutes in the money booth, but the key is you have to have a closed fist, you'd be like, well, what's the point? Like, I have to catch it with my mouth. Like, it's not going to work. You're not going to get much money. So, the first thing is open that fist, open their mind so that you can lay your value on top. And that's how they can receive it. But until they have an open mind, until they acknowledge that they're open to, I do identify with all of the things, this is for you if you are open-minded, if you are open to the idea that, it could actually be this easy to solve the problem or whatever. We want them to come to our offers with that mindset. It's really important. Again, the first step to a closed sale is an open mind. You can say it a lot of different ways, but that's the gist.
And it's all about making people feel like and giving them the opportunity for this to feel like it was their decision. And, I'm thinking back to a few clients who, it's so funny because I mostly used to use LinkedIn for getting new clients into the marketing agency. And I had at least 4 or 5 clients tell me, and they didn't know each other, but they would be introducing me to their team and they would say something like, "Oh yeah, I found Ray on LinkedIn." No, they didn't. I actually sought them out. But the way that I interacted with them and had the conversation with them made it feel like they chose me. And it was just that beautiful symbiotic relationship that never feels like, what are you trying to get from me? What do you really want? Where we feel like we're almost using each other. So this is just absolutely brilliant. And I love that you also have all of that experience from the kind of like former way of doing things. And you are now changing the way that people approach sales, and you're getting rid of that set of tactics that made people feel icky. So let me ask you, how did you get to the tipping point where you decided to go out on your own and teach people how to sell in this authentic relational way?
Well, I think I had kind of 2 tipping points. The first tipping point was 1998 when I was a general sales manager for a radio station in Chicago, 3rd largest market. I was one of the youngest sales managers in the market. I was definitely on the fast track, but I looked around and I did not see a single woman in the industry who was at a manager executive level that had a family or any sort of balance in their life. And it just, like I just said, hard stop. That's not the life that I want. And so I at that time I had been participating in sales and sales management training through an organization. And I approached them and I said, I think I could sell this stuff. Like, I want to get out of the radio business. And so that was tipping point number 1. And I started my own business. So that was when I became an entrepreneur. And then so that was when I was teaching a very old, tried and true at that time, like a very old technique driven sales methodology. I will not name. It's still out there. But I was well versed in that methodology. And then I got to a point where they used to say to me, don't get creative, Merritt, just sell the system. Just do what we tell you. And I was like, that I can't, I don't even know what that means. Like, don't get creative. No. And I actually had 2 guys that were in my training class. They sat next to each other in my sessions. They worked for the same company in the same territory, sold the same stuff at the same price point. And they sat right next to each other. And yet one of them had really good results with implementing what he had learned in class. And the other one was pretty stagnant, like nothing really changed for him. And it bothered me a lot because I realized in that moment that I can't take credit for being a great coach and trainer, for the guy who is having good experience, if I didn't also take responsibility that this guy hasn't done much different. Yeah. And so I had to look and see, well, what was really different about these guys? Because in my mind, I mean, they even looked the same. Like, there was no difference between like these 2 guys. And so that was when I started looking around. I actually stumbled upon it. And this was really long time ago, before talking about emotional intelligence was fashionable. Yeah. It was when I had to like explain to people what it was. They had never heard the term, and now it's kind of in the it's in the world. But it's really how well you understand your own emotions and the impact you have on others, how you understand what triggers you and other people, and that was the first kind of tipping point for me to leave that organization because I really felt like I could do people a much better service if I wasn't just focused on the mechanics of selling, but if I was also helping them understand and strengthen their sales mindset and also strengthen what I call sales motion, right? Which is all those actions and behaviors and tracking metrics, but having a game plan. And so it's not just about what you say, it's about, mindset, what you think, mechanics, what you say, and then motion, what you do. And so that has really become the framework. We call it the Open for Business framework. It's SELLect sales development because it's not just about being open for business in the sense of able to transact business. It's about being open to attracting business to you. It's about being open to taking the right actions because your mindset sees new possibilities, sees growth. And because of all of that working together, the things that you learn to say are not, would be completely inconsistent if you had all of that going for you and then you use some like old tactic.
Yeah.
So you have more confidence in the techniques that you do learn, and you don't have to feel like you need to use them in a manipulative kind of way because your strong sales mindset is the foundation, and you're doing so many consistent actions that that you're creating opportunities, so many opportunities for yourself that you don't need to close every deal. Every deal isn't an emergency.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that combination has really served my clients very well since I left that other organization and went out on my own. And then, it's just people resonate with it because it's how you want to be sold. Because it's not salesy. It's not being sold. It's conversation and selection.
And problem solving. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. You're just a natural rule breaker in the best way possible. So where can people check you out online if they want to learn more?
I think the best thing I could offer your audience is go to meritkahn.com. So it's MERITKAHN.com. If you throw a /podcast, that'll take you to a page that I share with people that I do interviews like this for. And that page actually has a link to take that sales SWOT that I mentioned. And I love that for a couple of reasons. Number one, you can look at it as a teachable moment because I would love for you to have something like that in your business to help you create a tool that puts you in a better position so that you and your prospects can really select each other. So it's a great, to look at that as a model for what you might create, but then also to help you find maybe some of those blind spots in your own business. It's your own SWOT analysis. And if it ends up being that we have a discussion, whether or not we work together, it will be a valuable exercise. So I really do encourage you to go to meritkahn.com/podcast to fill out that SWOT. And then there's, we also we have a little newsletter kind of thing. It's actually more like a very quick read that we would send out every couple of weeks, something valuable, not salesy, because that would be awful. So feel free to join me there.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, Merit. This was incredibly mind-opening and valuable. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Ray. I appreciate it.
Hey, Ray here again. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and rate us in your favorite podcasting platform. Want to be a guest on the show or know someone who has an amazing story of entrepreneurship? Apply on our website at chironconsulting.us/podcast.